Hi, this is MTV214. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Thanks to subscribers, new and old. I just want to go over a book that I just finished this evening. It's the Silmarillion by JRR Tolkien, which is edited by Christopher Tolkien, his son, after the father Tolkien's passing. So I just finished reading this tonight. I've already read Lord of the Rings, which is below there, and that took like 3 months to read. So I read this. It took less than a month, and I actually would have read it in faster, but my schedule has been really busy. But it's definitely an interesting book. I would say this being made into a TV show or a movie would be difficult because it's more than one story in it. It's basically a few stories in it about the creation of Middle Earth and about, like, men and elves and dwarves like working together and fighting and going against Sauron, like Lord of the Rings and different things. So it has some things like the other ones, but it's different. So it's like the early days. It takes place thousands of years before Lord of the Rings. So it's like the creation story. It's sort of interesting. It's like there's different gods and how they make Middle Earth, and Melkor is like sort of like the devil and is like the boss of Sauron. So it's definitely interesting. And with that, it goes on to different stories in it. The book isn't that long. It's almost 300 pages. Inside of it has like a map inside of it. There's lots of text. No pictures in here. Not one single picture, except the front and the back has the text. The title of this is sort of deceiving. It's the Silmarillion, but it's actually more than that. So that is sort of relating to, like, there's these like gemstones, and on the back cover it gives a little description. It sort of makes it think of like Thanos with Marvel and having that gauntlet with the stones in that, but it's in a crown, and it's not exactly the same thing, but that came right to mind about that. So I'm sure that both have some ancient, like, myth story that I'm not familiar with, that like is sort of inspiration for both of those. But it's that like Soren had that for some time, and then, like, he loses it and different things happen. And it has actually some things like Lord of the Rings in this, like from the books, and well, more of the movie. I don't remember if it was in the book specifically, but about with the different rings and the fighting, like what happens in Lord of the Rings. That there's some characters that in Lord of the Rings that are in this as well, like Galadriel and her husband Celeborn, I think it's pronounced. And then there's, I can't remember his name right now. Oh, like Elrod. But it's the same actor that played the Mr. Smith in the Matrix movies, and he was in some other movies as well. And also there's a bit about Gandalf in there, and Sauron and Saruman and some others, but mostly it's like the elves and like wizards, because they live for just about forever. They're basically immortal. And then with the world, it's interesting that like in it they have sort of a story that reminds me of sort of like the Tower of Babel, that men want to be able to go to like sort of like heaven across the sea, but can't, and there's a disaster, so they aren't able to. But there's a few different interesting stories. I'd say there's like maybe 5 or more stories. So if anything, this would be made into a film. More like a TV show would be the best bet for it. So it's definitely an interesting read. Some of the pronunciation is a little different. You'd have to get used to it. The words, like Silmarillion, you never hear that in real life. I just have also over here some other Tolkien books that I haven't read yet, but I plan to. And there's The Hobbit. I've had that for some time. It's funny, I read Lord of the Rings before The Hobbit. And this one, The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun, I actually got that from a Dollar Tree some years ago, but I haven't read it. It's like a poem format. I'm pretty sure that his son had, yeah, edited by Christopher Tolkien, his son. And then there's Tales Before Tolkien, which is like relates stories relating to that. And then the one on the bottom is The Ring Legends of Tolkien, and that's different like legends from around the world that sort of relate to with the Ring and Lord of the Rings. So it's sort of like inspiration of it. So it's definitely interesting to look into Tolkien's work. He was a professor by trade. He was in World War One. He's from South Africa, but British. So he's an interesting guy. He's sort of, if you ever listen to any interviews him, he sort of mumbles a little bit when speaking, but he's his basically brilliant genius. He's invented languages for Middle Earth with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and other works. So it's very interesting that like those languages have the world for them, which is Middle Earth. And there's so much depth to it. He worked on Middle Earth for like his whole life. It was his lifelong project. That's why this was published after his passing, because he just kept on working and editing over the years, other than like, you know, time with his family and the other, like, you know, work and different things. So it's very interesting. I definitely would suggest to read the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and the other ones are interesting as well. Well, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Check out previous future videos. Hit the bell notification so you can get notified at upcoming future videos. Have a great night. Take care.